Imagine opening a book, like if you just paid good money for it, and in the introduction, the author essentially begs you to throw it in the trash.
Yeah, it's a really jarring way to start.
It is. He tells you if you hold on to your preconceived notions, or, if logic makes you uncomfortable, or if you're easily offended, you have no business turning the page.
Right, he just shuts the door in your face.
Exactly. And that is exactly how the 19th century French occultist Eliphas Lévy starts his magnum opus, Doctrine and Ritual of High Magic.
Which is fascinating because, we are so accustomed to authors courting our attention, right? They try to gently persuade us to buy into their worldview.
Oh, for sure. Please read my book. Please leave a review.
Yeah, but Lévy does the complete opposite. He acts like a bouncer at the door of an incredibly exclusive, intellectually hostile club.
Well, welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. We are exploring a really dense, uncompromising curriculum curated by Ben Hod.
Specifically, we're looking at Module 1, Unit 4, Part 1 of Lévy's work.
Yes, and we need to set the tone right now, just like Lévy did. If you are tuning in today thinking of magic as, bookstore spell recipes, crystal healing,
or spooky superstitions.
Yeah, spooky superstitions, you really need to leave that at the door.
Yeah.
Our mission today is to unpack Lévy's rebranding of magic. He frames it not as mysticism, but as a rigorous, serious, and honestly slightly intense psychological science of the human will.
And for anyone looking for a quick fix, this material is going to be deeply frustrating.
Oh, absolutely.
Lévy isn't offering parlor tricks or some kind of shortcut to wealth. He is reviving this ancient concept of the great work.
Right.
And the core of this work is about achieving absolute, unbreakable sovereignty over your own mechanical, biological impulses.
Which is a tall order.
It's a massive order. It's this demanding process of becoming a self-contained universe, entirely insulated from the shifting tides of emotion, public opinion, or just, basic physical desire.
Which brings us back to that brutal introduction. I want to understand the psychology behind an author demanding you drop his book.
It does seem counterproductive at first.
Yeah, at first glance, it reads like pure 19th century elitism. He tells the reader that his truths are dangerous, and he uses this incredibly vivid metaphor, calling the uninitiated masses nyctalopes.
Nyctalopes, right, the birds of the night.
Birds of the night, exactly. What is he actually saying there?
Well, that metaphor is foundational to understanding Lévy's methodology. Think about a creature whose eyes have evolved entirely for the dark.
Like an owl or a bat.
Exactly. Their vision relies on shadows, dimness, and a complete lack of direct illumination.
Okay, I follow.
Lévy applies this to the human mind. Most people, he argues, are intellectually adapted only to the filtered, comfortable light of societal dogma and inherited beliefs.
So for a bird of the night, shining a spotlight directly in their eyes isn't going to help them see better.
It causes total agony. To show a mind that is accustomed to comfortable illusions, the blazing, unfiltered light of objective truth, what the Greeks called episteme, is not an educational experience.
It's an attack.
Yes. It is a violent, blinding shock. Lévy warns that when these individuals encounter actual truth, their minds will scramble to protect their fragile internal reality.
Wow.
They will perceive the light as a literal assault, and to them, the truth will actually seem, as he puts it, more obscure than darkness.
Okay, let me try to map this out with a modern framework, because I think we deal with this constantly today.
Oh, absolutely. It's very relevant.
Think about a deeply held belief you hold about yourself or the world. If someone proved it fundamentally wrong tomorrow, with undeniable evidence, would your brain simply accept it?
Rarely. Usually we double down.
Right. You'd fight, rationalize, and attack the messenger just to protect your ego. Lévy is warning you about your own cognitive dissonance.
That's a great way to frame it.
It reminds me of the fiduciary standard in finance. A fiduciary is legally obligated to act in your best financial interest, even if it means telling you no.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Like a casual amateur just playing around on a stock app has no business meddling in complex generational wealth management because they lack the discipline. They could bankrupt the whole family.
Exactly.
So Lévy is acting as a fiduciary for the reader's psyche. He is offering you a justified out before you suffer a total mental breakdown.
He demands a Cartesian tabula rasa.
A completely blank slate.
Yes. You have to completely wipe the intellectual slate clean. You have to demolish the rotten foundation before you can build a cathedral.
So it's not snobbery. It's safety.
Exactly. Looking at it through the lens of a psychological fiduciary makes perfect sense of his abrasive tone. Levy maps this precise psychological hazard using a much older architectural framework, which is Kabbalah.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, he looks at the tree of life to explain how the human mind processes profound power. In Kabbalah, you have the sphere of Bina, which represents understanding.
Okay, Bina.
And Bina is cold, restrictive, structural, and very disciplined. Across from it, you have Chokmah, which is wisdom.
And what does Chokmah represent?
Chokmah represents raw, explosive, expansive, masculine fire.
Ah, okay. So you need the structure of Bina before you introduce the fire of Chokmah.
Absolutely. Levy knows that the human mind must be tempered by the freezing restriction of Bina before it can possibly handle the boundless energy of Chokmah.
Makes sense.
If you take the blazing fire of ultimate truth and just drop it into an unprepared, fragile, undisciplined vessel, it doesn't illuminate the room. It burns the entire house to the ground.
So madness is the result of a weak mind trying to process infinite power.
That is exactly his point.
Okay, so let's say a reader accepts this. You wipe the slate clean, you accept the restriction, and you survive the hazing at the door. What exactly is the true science we are being initiated into?
Well, that requires looking at two distinct figures.
Right, because Levy draws a razor-sharp ontological distinction between two characters, the magician and the sorcerer. He promises to surgically reveal the divine science of the magician and expose the infernal delusion of the sorcerer. As a skeptical reader, I really want to know who these two characters actually are in the real world.
So the distinction is essentially an autopsy of the spiritualist movements of his time, people doing table turning and seances and all that.
Yeah, the parlor trick stuff.
Exactly. Let's examine the magician, or the adept. Levy refers to the true magician as the sovereign pontiff.
Pontiff, like the Pope.
Well, etymologically, pontifex means bridge builder.
Oh, bridge builder, I like that.
Yeah. The magician is an ontological engineer. Their entire work is to align their individual focused will with the universal equilibrium of nature.
Building a bridge.
Yes. They build a bridge spanning the chasm between the archetypal realm of pure ideas and the heavy, chaotic world of physical matter. They operate with mathematical precision, disposing of a force they intimately understand.
So if the magician is the disciplined engineer building the bridge, there must be a contrasting figure, the person who, blows the bridge up because they lack the math.
That would be the sorcerer.
They seem to be the ones actually causing the damage in Levy's worldview.
Well, entirely. The sorcerer is the tragic gambler of the occult world. The word itself shares a root with the Latin sors, which means lot or fate.
Like drawing lots.
Exactly. The sorcerer wants the spectacular payout without putting in the grueling psychological labor.
They want the cheat codes.
Yes. They are entirely enslaved by fascination, attempting to hijack cosmic forces without reading the manual or building the internal architecture.
Which is dangerous.
Incredibly. Because they lack the moral discipline of reason, they inevitably become possessed by the very forces they are trying to command.
That brings up a really heavy term Levy uses, which I think trips up a lot of modern readers, and that's the devil.
Oh, yes. That word carries so much baggage.
Right. Because in the 19th century, that has immense religious weight. He has this cryptic line saying, the devil surrenders to the magician, but the sorcerer surrenders to the devil.
It sounds very dramatic.
It does. But Levy calls the devil a vulgar word. He's not talking about a conscious entity with horns punishing sinners in hell, is he?
Far from it. Levy strips the theology right out of the concept. For him, the devil is simply a placeholder term for the astral light.
The astral light.
Yeah, the astral light is a blind, plastic, raw force of nature. It is the underlying battery of the cosmos. It possesses zero moral compass, no malice, and no mercy.
It simply operates on cause and effect.
Exactly.
So it's electricity.
That's a perfect analogy.
If the astral light is electricity, then the magician is the master electrician. The electrician studies the grid, knows the voltage, and, most importantly, wears the heavy rubber gloves. They have built the necessary insulation.
Right, they protect themselves.
But the sorcerer, on the other hand, is a desperate amateur who breaks into the substation and grabs a live high-voltage wire with bare hands out of sheer greed.
And we know how that ends.
Yeah. The electricity doesn't hate the amateur. It doesn't judge them. It just incinerates them because they violated the laws of physics.
The incineration is just an automatic response to a lack of preparation.
Right.
So the critical question then becomes, how does an individual construct that heavy rubber insulation?
How do you build the gloves?
Exactly. If touching the raw current of the universe without preparation leads to madness or ruin, what is the protocol for safety?
Which brings us to his roadmap.
This is where Levy lays out his ultimate psychological roadmap for the practitioner.
The Sphinx.
The Sphinx, yes.
To reach what Levy calls the sanctum regnum, the holy kingdom of self-sovereignty, he maps out 4 strict functional requirements.
And he uses the ancient composite beast of the Sphinx to represent the 4 verbs of the Magus.
And this is where the text shifts, right? It goes from this abstract esoteric theory into some grueling, high-stakes character development.
It really does. The tetramorph of the Sphinx represents the 4 pillars of the adept's mind. First, we have the human head, which corresponds to the verb to know.
But that's not just book smarts.
No, it is not merely memorizing facts from a textbook. It is intelligence enlightened by ruthless, rigorous study. It requires practicing what you might call epistemological hygiene.
Epistemological hygiene, I love that phrase.
It means constantly interrogating your own mind to separate what you actually know through observation from what you merely believe out of comfort.
Okay, so that's the head. Next is the lion's claws and chest, representing the verb to dare.
Right.
This feels like the audacity required to step completely out of the herd mentality. It is the courage to face the abyss of your own insignificance and decide to build a universe anyway, regardless of how terrifying the isolation of that path might be.
It takes immense bravery. And then, moving to the lower half of the Sphinx, we find the bull's body, which aligns with the verb to will.
To will.
This is the grounded, stubborn, immovable persistence of the practitioner. It is the geological weight of a mind that has decided on a course of action and cannot be swayed by fatigue or despair.
I want to pause on to will, because I think it's really easy for someone to just say, well, just have strong willpower.
It's much easier said than done.
Right. How does a practitioner actually train the bull in their daily life? It seems to me that it requires introducing voluntary friction.
Voluntary friction, yes.
Like a modern person might train the bull by taking ice-cold showers, fasting, or adhering to a punishing daily routine that their moods absolutely cannot alter.
You are practically proving to your biological body that the mind is the absolute dictator of the physical form.
Exactly.
Voluntary friction is exactly the mechanism. You forge the bull by repeatedly denying the body its default comforts.
So what's the 4th pillar?
Finally, we reach the eagle's wings, corresponding to the verb to keep silent. This is perhaps the most difficult of the 4 for a modern mind to grasp, yet it acts as the vital containment field for the other 3.
You know, this part fascinated me because if you dig into esoteric literature, authors constantly argue over which animal represents which verb.
Oh, they fight about it all the time.
Yeah, some say the lion is will, others say the bull is silence. It can drive a student insane if they treat it like a rigid periodic table of elements.
It's not meant to be read that mechanically.
Right. As I sat with it, I realized it isn't a mechanical table. It's about the phase of the psychological force.
The phase, exactly.
A lion is the explosive spark of ignition, the audacity to start. The bull is the contained, enduring mass. And the silence of the eagle is the containment vessel itself.
That's a brilliant way to frame it.
I kept thinking of it as a pressure cooker.
Oh.
If you put heat, your will and your daring into a pot, you need a heavy lid to build the pressure required to cook anything.
You need a seal.
Exactly. And what does a novice do today when they start a new diet, a new business, or a magical practice? They immediately post about it online.
They seek external validation.
Right. They want that dopamine hit of public approval. But the moment you brag to the uninitiated about the internal work you are doing, you break the rubber seal on the pressure cooker.
The energy just leaks out.
It leaks out into what Levy brilliantly calls the flux and reflux of public opinion. The vacuum seal breaks, the pressure dissipates into mere noise, and your entire operation collapses. Silence isn't about hiding a spooky secret. It's about preserving kinetic energy.
Framing silence as the preservation of kinetic energy strips away all that melodrama of occult secrecy.
Yeah, it grounds it in physics.
To remain silent is to aggressively maintain a sacred interiority. Once a practitioner has mastered these 4 pillars, once their intelligence is surgically clear, their courage is ignited, their will is anchored in daily discipline, and their pressure cooker is hermetically sealed, they begin a profound transformation.
And what exactly is cooking inside?
Well, what is cooking inside is not a spell to change the weather or, make someone fall in love with them. The adept is giving birth to a completely new internal world.
which Levy calls the microprosopis.
Yes, a Kabbalistic term that translates to the lesser countenance or the little world.
The little world.
The adept ceases to be a product of their environment and becomes the absolute creator of their own internal universe.
To help the reader visualize this immense psychological shift, Levy points us to the tarot. Right?
He does. He views the major arcana not as a fortune-telling parlor game, but as a primordial pictorial alphabet of the human psyche.
Okay.
He directs our attention to the very first card, the magician, or le battleur. Levy analyzes the geometry of the figure, noting that the magician's body physically forms the shape of the Hebrew letter Aleph, the initiator of the alphabet.
Let's look really closely at that imagery. The magician has one hand pointing up to the sky and one hand pointing down.
Right.
The hand pointing up holds a wand, commanding the celestial sky, reaching into the logos, the objective mathematical order of the universe. But crucially, the other hand doesn't point to the dirt. It points directly to his own chest.
The specificity of that downward gesture is everything.
Why is that so important?
Because if the magician's hand pointed to the earth, the energetic circuit would bypass his human soul entirely. He would act as a mere lightning rod, channeling power mechanically into the ground.
But he doesn't.
No. By grounding that divine celestial power directly into his own solar plexus, he absorbs the current into his own ego. It ceases to be an external transaction and becomes an internal alchemy. He is the living battery.
Oh.
Levy also notes the magician's large hat, which is shaped like a lemniscate, the infinity symbol.
Right, the sideways figure 8.
Exactly. If he pulls that brim down, it hides his head entirely. It functions as a visual metaphor for withdrawing his highest intelligence from the profane world to protect his inner kingdom.
Wait, hold on a second. I need to push back on the imagery of this card because it presents a massive paradox to me.
Let's hear it.
Levy reveres the Magus as a sovereign philosopher king, right? A master of universal equilibrium.
Yes, absolutely.
Yet, Le Battleur translates closely to a street juggler or an illusionist. In the traditional image, he is standing behind a table with a cheap trickster's satchel.
True.
If he possesses this ultimate internal sovereignty, why is he carrying the baggage of a street performer? Is this guy a bridge builder, or is he a con artist?
That is a fantastic question, and the contradiction is entirely intentional. It reveals the core of Levy's methodology regarding secrecy.
Okay, let me try to untangle this then. It feels like the Disciplina Arcani, the ancient discipline of the secret.
Yes, go on.
Look at the table in front of him. The Magus has his visible tools laid out for everyone to see. The wand, the cup, the sword, and the pentacle.
The shiny objects.
Right. The uninitiated crowd stares at the shiny objects, assuming the power lies in the wood and the metal, but the trickster's satchel remains closed. He keeps the true, volatile engine of his work hidden in reserve. The visible rituals and tools are just the outer skin, the distraction. The invisible, silent discipline locked inside the practitioner is the actual machinery.
The satchel is the domain of the unmanifested will. It serves as a constant reminder that truly powerful individuals never show their entire hand to the public.
That makes perfect sense.
And if we tie the sealed satchel back to the 4 animals of the Sphinx, we finally realize what raw materials are actually being processed inside that internal universe.
Well, what are they?
The animals Levy commands us to subjugate. The roaring lion, the stubborn bull, the soaring eagle, these are not mythical creatures. They represent our own biological passions, our endocrine systems, our deepest fears, and our animalistic appetites.
It's the internal zoo.
Precisely. You cannot ascend to the throne of the microprosopis. You cannot be the king of your little world if you are a helpless slave to a sudden spike in cortisol or a wave of dopamine. If your moods dictate your actions, you are an animal, not an adept. But the brilliant nuance in Levy's system is that you do not kill the beast.
You don't kill it.
No. Extreme ascetics make the error of trying to annihilate their own nature. You do not destroy your desire or your rage. You yoke them.
You harness them.
Yes. You harness the heavy, primal horsepower of the animal and attach it to the chariot of your conscious will.
This brings to mind a specific part of Ben Hod's curriculum for this unit. He includes a piece of music he wrote called Crown the Inner King, and it perfectly encapsulates his gritty, violent internal war.
It's a powerful piece.
It really is. The lyrics describe the 4 shapes moving behind the skin, referencing the wings rising up and the heady hooves dragging. There's a line that goes, "Teeth of doubt and fear collide, heat and silence locked inside."
Heat and silence locked inside.
It perfectly illustrates the pressure cooker we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
You are locking the heat of your animal nature and the silence of your discipline inside yourself to forge a completely new identity.
Yeah.
You refuse to bow down to the biological imperative of your own body. Instead, you build the throne upon it.
Taming what was never mine.
Yeah.
It is a stunning synthesis of Levy's fundamental requirement. The practitioner must suffer, abstain, and systematically dismantle their lower self. This intense, solitary, often painful process of self-creation is what Levy genuinely means when he refers to the first magical science.
So to synthesize this deeply challenging material, Levy's concept of high magic is not a fantasy novel.
Not at all.
It is a grueling philosophical gauntlet. It is an extreme stoic practice. It requires clearing out your comfortable dogmatic junk, studying the raw electrical mechanics of the universe, and constructing an impenetrable internal equilibrium. You must master the four verbs: to deeply know, to audaciously dare, to immovably will, and to hermetically keep silent. By doing so, you insulate yourself so thoroughly that you are no longer buffeted by what Levy calls the alternatives of life and death.
You graduate from being a reactionary animal to becoming the sovereign architect of your own inner world.
Which is incredible. But achieving that sovereignty leads us to one final, truly provocative concept from Levy's text for you to ponder.
Yes, we've discussed his demand to die to the lower biological self. But Levy takes this a step further, introducing the concept of the glorious death and the mors philosophorum, the death of the philosopher.
The death of the philosopher. If the whole point of this is to achieve mastery and immortality, why are we talking about the ultimate end?
Because Levy argues that change is synonymous with death.
Change is death.
Yes, anything that shifts, ages, alters its mind, or adapts to its environment is inherently unstable and therefore mortal. To his mind, the only way to achieve true immortality is to become an invariable, entirely fixed principle.
A fixed principle.
He suggests that when a true adept perfectly fixes their will and aligns entirely with absolute, objective reason, they cease to be a shifting collection of human appetites. They transcend biology entirely and become a pure symbol.
Wow.
Humanity inevitably recognizes this fixed perfection and eventually builds altars and statues to them, turning the adept into a permanent, unchanging fixture in the collective memory of the species.
Becoming an invariable principle.
Yeah.
That is an incredibly heavy concept to chew on.
It is the ultimate goal.
Especially in a modern culture that is entirely obsessed with constant pivoting, fleeting TikTok trends, the endless flux of opinion, and reinventing ourselves every 5 minutes.
Right. We worship change.
We do. But Levy is suggesting the exact opposite. He is arguing that true, godlike power is not found in adapting to the world, but in stopping your own internal movement entirely. It's the challenge of becoming a living statue.
So the question we leave you with today is this. In an era defined by overwhelming, chaotic change, do you have the audacity, the will, and the silence required to stop moving, fix your principles, and become an immovable force?
It fundamentally changes how you view that bouncer at the door of Levy's club. He isn't gatekeeping you to be cruel. He is trying to save you from yourself.
Exactly.
He is warning you that the comforting, easy cookbook you are desperately looking for does not exist. There are no external recipes to fix your internal chaos, only the raw, blinding light of your own hard-won sovereignty.
Perfectly said.
Thank you so much for stepping into the Sanctum Regnum with us today. Keep interrogating your own internal universe. Keep taming those inner beasts, and we will see you on the next deep dive.
Cold page candle burns my eyes. Ink bleeds through the quiet lines. Dust lifts when I turn the page. Old words cut like hidden.